Good evening, everyone. It's 5:31. My name is Karen Pan with City of Burbank Transportation Services Manager. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the proposed parking management plan for downtown. With me is my colleague, Angelica Gonzalez. She is a parking analyst in Community Development Department, and we're the lucky ones who are here with you today to talk about this project. And it's a effort that includes multiple city departments, such as our police department and our information technology. And we're really happy that you're here today to learn more about what's going on with this. And so, with that, we'll go ahead and start our presentation and we'll talk about when you can share your input and next steps for this project. Uh, So this parking management plan is for our downtown Burbank area. And for this community meeting, we are scheduled for 1 hour and a half maximum. So we will be here until 7 o'clock or until the last person is here. Please note that this meeting is recorded and we will make sure to upload it onto our Burbank YouTube channel for viewing. And then we'll also have a link and more information posted on our website, which is at parking.burbankca.gov. There'll be opportunities to share input and ask questions. You'll see on the bottom of our Zoom link, you'll be able to ask questions. Please make sure that a feature is only used for questions and any conversations should be avoided. With that, we'll make sure to have all of our questions that were commented either through the chat feature or at the end. We'll post it after our meeting for viewing. And then we'll also have an opportunity where people can raise their hand during this meeting. And we're allowing 1 minute max. And of course, you can always contact the project leads tonight, which is Angelica and myself. And I'll go ahead and let Angelica start.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Karen. Again, my name is Angelica Gonzalez. I'm the parking analyst for the city. So why are we here? Last fall, City Council directed staff to develop a parking management plan for downtown Burbank. Based on our evaluation of the overall parking situation in the downtown Burbank area, we aimed to develop a strategy for optimizing usage of the on-street spaces and our parking lots and structures. A huge issue in the downtown Burbank area is that on-street parking is heavily utilized and yet there's low turnover. Also, some blocks are more heavily utilized than others. For instance, San Fernando Boulevard. And so these areas of high demand contribute to the perception that there's insufficient parking spaces when the problem really is related to the management of parking and enforcement of parking. Next slide, please, Karen. Okay, to continue, speaking of San Fernando, this past March, the downtown San Fernando reconfiguration project was completed. It was aimed in improving not only safety measures for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists, but also to increase the access to the parking along San Fernando. Right now, it's the one way. Another thing that we did is that we modified our loading zones, which we now refer to our flex zones. If you guys notice in downtown Burbank, we removed the colored curves. They're now all gray. And in their stead, we've installed signage. There's 10-minute parking. And then there's also commercial parking that reverts to 10-minute parking after a certain time period. This was done or aimed, I guess I should say, for those those running in for coffee, those for, running in to get Uber Eats or whatnot. So definitely you guys will have noticed those changes. Next slide, Karen. So up here, you'll see our goals aimed at addressing the existing and future parking demand needs in downtown. One, we want to ensure that customers can reliably find parking within walking distance of their destination. Two, we want to increase access to businesses by ensuring that there's turnover. And three, we'd like to reduce emissions and lessen traffic congestion from drivers circling in search of parking, right? We circle around because we want that front door parking. So our goal is to help reduce that. Next slide, Karen. So how do we manage parking in downtown today? So there's over 6,000 spaces within the downtown Burbank area, consisting of 3,350 off-street spaces, so our lots and structures, and 2,290 on-street spaces. The two existing management tools that we have in the downtown area are time limits, which include 1 hour parking, 90-minute parking, and 2-hour parking limits. Also, we have parking permits that are to be used for our public lots and structures. Currently, we have 7 lots. 4 of them have permit parking and 7 structures with 6 of them that have permit parking. As you can see, we have day use permits that are available for $6, or if you like to purchase for a month permit, that is $67. Next slide. Next slide, Karen.
Oh, give me one. Oh, there it goes.
Okay, and now to some of the shortfalls. So again, on-street spaces are constantly occupied and likely for hours, both by customers and employees of the downtown businesses. Because they're, these customers are exceeding the time limits, there's low parking availability. And also, we currently have no pricing, right? So everything right now on street is regulated by the times. There's no paying for on-street parking. And because of that, we also are not able to reinvest any monies into our infrastructure. Lastly, we didn't have the technology for any managing parking, permits or collecting data. So those are some things that we would like to address. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Karen to talk about our proposed plan.
And with this parking management plan, with those goals in mind, in the past year, we're really taking a look at who this parking management plan is for and how does it impact our community. We want to be mindful of our residents. We want to be mindful of our customers, businesses, visitors, or anyone that needs reasonable accommodation. And so when we were developing this plan, we wanted to be mindful of what does this mean for those audiences? What would it look like? And we want to walk you through this parking management plan and see it from that perspective. So with this plan, it highlights that this parking management plan will be managed by price, and it's only related to on-street parking. That means any streets along San Fernando, as well as Olive, that's where you're going to see a change in terms of how parking is managed. When it comes to the structures and lots, they're not being touched at this moment. And so if you were to go to any lots or structures, it would still continue to be free. And so with on-street, the way parking management will be based on, it will be based on occupancy level at 80%. meaning that our goal is to make sure that for every block, there's about 1 to 2 spaces available to ensure that people can enjoy those businesses and allow others to enjoy them as well. And so, with that parking fee, all of those fees will be reinvested back into our parking structures, such as our structures and lots. And then within our parking management plan, we'll go over what that implementation plan looks like in terms of next steps. So within this plan, we'll be talking about management strategies related to paid parking and what we have today. We'll also talk about what new infrastructure you'll see as part of this when you're walking around downtown. And then we'll also talk about how we're going to manage it through enforcement as well. And so for this plan, because it's on street, what you're gonna see visually is a multi-space kiosk throughout this designated area that you see. So horizontally is San Fernando Boulevard, and then you'll see the kiosks through Magnolia, Palm Avenue, Orange Grove, Olive, and Angelina. Some of the proposed regulations in this plan refers to that fee, and it will be based on occupancy level. We are looking at starting uh, parking fees to be at $2 per hour, and it's based on the occupancy level. And throughout the year, if we see that occupancy levels vary, then at that point, the parking rate will be adjusted. So, for example, if we see that uh, the designated parking area is completely full, people are paying the $2, we're not seeing available spaces, then we would adjust the price to maybe $2.50. And then hopefully with that rate, you'll see availability. And then it works the other way where if uh, if there's no one parking along that designated area on street, then we know that the pricing is too high and that maybe we should lower it to maybe $1.50. And then at that point, we'll monitor the occupancy level. And so with that rate, it'll be adjusted. It could be adjusted, it could not be adjusted. It won't be demand pricing where it would fluctuate per the day or per the event that's going on at that time. It'll just be assessed periodically throughout the year. And then if there needs to be adjustment at that time, that's when we would make it. In terms of when paid parking would start, it's still in the gray area because we're still getting community feedback through key stakeholders as well as all of you here today. And we're trying to get feedback on what works for people. We want to be mindful of those businesses. We want to be mindful of visitors, residents. And so we're looking for feedback on when we should start and when we should end paid parking. Two ideas we had was to start at 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. or maybe 8 a.m. to midnight. We were thinking about 8 a.m. because we want to be mindful that if businesses are trying to open up their store, they have the opportunity to park along San Fernando or any of those on street before business starts. That was one consideration, and I'm sure there's more, and we would greatly appreciate any feedback. In terms of time limit, right now, when you're around downtown, you're going to see a variety of time limits. Some of them are 60 minutes, some of them are 90 minutes, because we want to make sure that this process is seamless and that there's uniformity. We are proposing to change those designated streets to all be 2 hour limit. So there is no confusion whether you're on this street, it's at a different time. And in the past year, we have been doing a lot of research as well as consultants assisting us with this effort. And so we've taken a look at what uh, paid parking or parking management looks like for other neighboring cities. So we have information about Glendale, Old Town Pasadena, Culver City, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood. And the first column that you see is the main downtown area. And then some cities have designated areas that are really close to downtown, which we are considering the outer core, and that's the second column. Just looking at that first column, you can see what the average rate is, and it's between $1.25 per hour all the way to $2.50 an hour. Time limits are from 1 hour to 3 hours. And then when it comes to hours of operation, it varies depending on that need of that community. And what we're seeing is that parking management happens every day, including holidays. And then when you get to the second column, what you'll see is that the rates are a little bit lower, probably because there's more availability of parking in those areas, and time limits remain very consistent, where it's between the 1 to 3 hours, as well as hours of operation. Other conditions that we have within our plan is that anyone who has an ADA placard is exempt from this. And so if you have that placard, you can still park along the on-street, and you're not required to pay any of those fees. And another thing that we look at, because this parking management plan is based on occupancy, we hired a consultant to assist us to capture that data, so we have a better understanding of what's going on in downtown. And so what you see here on the screen is the average occupancy level as of March this year, where we've collected data. And on the left side is a weekday, and then on the right side is a weekend. And towards the top middle area, you're gonna see a little rectangle, and that's the area that we're really looking at in terms of this proposed project, where we can help better manage parking. And so what this visually shows is that based on data, the things that are areas that you see in red, that's where you're gonna have an occupancy level that's really high, where people are really parking there most of the day, where it's close to 86% to 100% always occupied. Whether it's a weekday on Thursday or a weekend, you could see that it's really red in those area. And that's how we chose this specific area for our parking management plan, because we do see there is a need to have that turnover and have parking available for those that want to be closer to those businesses. And so with that parking management plan, we've mentioned our goals to have that turnover and to reduce emissions, but also we want to be mindful that this parking management plan is for everyone. And really, when we were planning this out, we wanted to make sure every step of the way is very simple and user friendly for those, and that customer service is always available to those that might have questions along the way. And so with that, and how we make sure that we provide simple, easy, user-friendly, and have customer service for those. One thing that you'll see visually is that there'll be a parking operator available, meaning that there's someone there to answer questions. You might see them with a shirt that's a different color. You can always contact our phone number to talk to a parking operator if you're having trouble with any of the kiosks. And then also the main duties of that parking operator is just to manage what's going on a day-to-day basis. With that, there's going to be infrastructure, which is the kiosk. And so one of their duties is to also collect money and to provide that customer service. And with this, there'll be an outreach and education effort because we understand that it's going to take time to really go through this transition for everyone. When it comes to the infrastructure itself, these are multi-space kiosks. It won't be a kiosk dedicated for one space itself. And so the kiosk is for coins and credit cards, and they'll be scattered throughout. Another way of payment is through a mobile application, and then you will see signage along each post that will allow you to pay for parking. And it could be through a mobile app, it could be an online, and it could also be through text. And we're also exploring other ways where there's opportunities for people to be able to pay for parking and have easy access to it. And one thing about paid parking, the way the customer service experience is that you could pay through the kiosk or you could pay through your phone in different ways. And then when you make your payment, you're going to be using your license plate number. And we've chosen this route, and we know that there's other different ways to pay for parking. We've seen it where people would get physical tickets. We've seen people where they're assigned specific spaces. And the reason why we chose license plate number, because it's an easy access and it's a number that you remember versus someone going back to the parking space, trying to figure out what their number is, or if they were to lose their physical ticket, because of all those steps that could be avoided, we made it seamless where you would just be entering your license plate number. And because we're using license plate numbers, enforcement will be able to see that information. And so if someone is not paying or if they exceeded their time, there's a way for us to manage parking through enforcement through that mechanism. And this is very similar to what we do today for enforcement with permits or just parking in general throughout the city. In terms of next steps, we are still doing outreach. And so we're looking for any feedback or questions or things that we should think about through this process. And then the goal is to present this to council if this is something that should be considered. And we're aiming for November 19th. And if things move forward, then we'll be able to see those changes early 2025. If it were to be implemented, there'll be an effort for a couple of weeks where there'll be people near the kiosks to assist people to know how to use the machines or any of the mobile payment. There'll be more hands-on experience for a couple of weeks just to make sure that people are aware of this change. And we will have more opportunities for public input. This is virtual, and we wanted to make sure we capture people who want to meet with us in person and provide feedback. And so our next community meeting is on August 29th from 6 to 7:30, and it'll be at our community services building, which is located at 150 North 3rd Street on the first floor here in Burbank. And so with that, that concludes our presentation. We will start public comment, and each person that would like to say something, we will allow for 1 minute. And as well, we'll make sure to have this PowerPoint available so you could still see this information today. Angelica, I think I see one hand raised. It is Chantel. Chantel, I clicked, and so you have 1 minute.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to voice my concerns because I don't like paid parking. And I went to Pasadena recently to a store that only has paid parking nearby. And I'm not going to go there again because I just refuse to pay for paid parking. And that's part of what makes Burbank so great is that we have free parking here. And I know that a lot of residents feel the same way. The recent changes that we've had with San Fernando and Olive, I don't like those either. So just want to make sure that I voice my opinion that parking stays free in Burbank. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chantal. We appreciate that feedback. All feedback is good feedback, and we are seeing a balancing act of what people are interested and what people are not interested. So we really appreciate you voicing your thoughts on this project. Thank you, Chantal. Angelica, do you see any hands raised up or if there's any Q&A in our feature chats?
So I don't see any more hands raised, nor do I see anything in the chat. If you guys have questions, feel free to select either option. We're more than happy to answer any questions regarding the proposed plan. I see one hand raised of Renee. Karen, can you go ahead and click? There you go. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Renee.
Okay. Hi, I had a question regarding you mentioning fluctuating rates during high and lower occupancy times. Is that going to be a permanent thing? I know on some evenings perhaps it's busier than during the day or weekends, holidays and such. Is there a plan already around that? To address, is it going to fluctuate based on time of day or just occupancy, I guess, basically is what I'm asking.
Thank you, Renee, for your question. So because we want to make sure that this is a seamless process when you're visiting downtown, and we don't want to cause any confusion or ruin the experience of going to downtown, we want to make sure that we have that uniformity. And so we're not going to propose a rate where it fluctuates throughout the day or at an event. So it means that if we're gonna move forward with $2 per hour, then it would be $2 an hour. And then if we were to do an assessment 3 to 4 months and we see the occupancy levels are at it meets our expectations, then we would keep it at that $2. And so you're not gonna see a fluctuation based on the day because it's busy at night, and you're not going to see a fluctuation because of a holiday. It's going to be that set rate, and that we would adjust a couple months later, or maybe it might be 1 or 2 times a year, or maybe none at all if it seems to be working with our 80% occupancy level. Does that answer your question, Renee?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll give it 1 more minute. And again, we want to make sure that the community, businesses, residents, visitors are aware of what's going on. and we're doing our best to make sure that we capture everyone and get input. And so there'll be opportunities to share input along with us. Here is our phone number, which is 818-238-5290. And we also have an email address, parking@burbankca.gov, as well as our website. And we'll make sure to have this information available online. We also have our direct contact information. So if you wanted to reach out to any of us, we're available to talk about this topic. And with that, let me just double check that if there are any other questions. Angelica, do you see any questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay. And so with that, thank you so much for joining us today. We are available in person next week, and with all questions, including comments as well, we'll make sure to record it for purposes and to share that input with council. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.